Hello everyone, welcome to my lair. Today we're going to be building the FA-18F Hornet by Academy in 1/72 scale. So I'll be honest, I've never been the biggest fan of the F-18 because I never thought it was that cool looking. The F-18 E and F are cooler looking than the old OG F-18, but still. I actually got this kit because I'm slowly working on building all the US Navy fighters, and because I was so happy with the Academy F4 Phantom. However, once I got this kit, I started looking at the box art, and I thought to myself, hey, that looks an awful lot like Nevada. Now, I know that Nevada also looks suspiciously like Afghanistan, but I checked the paint and decal options, and sure enough, these are options for NAS Fallon. If you don't know, there's a fighter weapons school there, which we can call Topgun. And every day when I drive to work, I get treated to a free air show featuring these Super Hornets practicing dogfights over the desert. So of course I have to give it a go. I also learned the most badass thing about this plane too, so if you're not going to watch to the end, please at least click to this time marker, because I just think it's the craziest thing in the world, so cool, and I want to share it with you. Now, the one thing that really bothers me about this kit is that there's this huge flippin' seam line right down the center of the canopy. What the heck, Academy? So I've got to get rid of that seam line. I start by running the blade of my hobby knife along it to scrape most of it off. Then I use these micro sanding pads to polish it up again. Now I want to scratch build some details for the ejection seats. When I showed off my F4 in a video, a viewer asked to see how I did the seats, so now I'm finally getting around to it. Sorry for the wait, dude. Basically, I looked up some reference photos for the seats and tried to replicate all the doodads I saw using wire, tape, all sorts of junk and garbage. Some copper wire is essential for all the little handles, ejection poles, and other details. I just used some masking tape cut into tiny strips for the belts. It's nice because you can fold it easily and get a good realistic effect, and it still takes paint. Plus, it will stick where you want it to until you tack it down with super glue. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, please let me know by leaving me a like, and if you don't like it, feel free to be honest and leave me a dislike. But as always, please let me know what I can do better. And if you really, really like it, then be sure to subscribe. I do my best to have a new video out every Wednesday, so don't miss out. And there you go, that's my completed ejection seat. So the Super Hornet is basically just a larger, more advanced version of the earlier F-18s. I think they actually have a lower radar cross-section than the earlier F-18s despite being bigger, and of course they have better avionics range, etc., etc. When they came into service in 1999, they replaced the F-14 Tomcat, and in my opinion that was a terrible decision since the Tomcat is so much cooler looking. But I guess the Navy was more interested in a multi-mission fighter that was lighter, more economical, and more capable than they were in a fighter that was obviously more aesthetically pleasing. Oh well. And I decided to glue these fans on backwards. Don't worry, I'll catch it before it's too late. Most everything came together fairly well. You'll notice that the kit comes in gray, white, and black molded plastic. I think that's kind of neat, but I think it was done more for kids who weren't planning on painting it at all. It is technically a snap type, and it comes with stickers in addition to the decals. I think this little thing is a targeting pod or laser or something. If you know, let me know in the comments. There's nothing in the instructions about weighting the nose, but usually with jets you need to do so, and I figured better safe than sorry. So whenever I'm out walking, I keep an eye out for these balancing weights that come off of tires. I just nip off what I need, shape it, and voila. Now that I think about it, maybe that's why I screw stuff up all the time. Lead poisoning. Oh well, at least my plane is heavy. I didn't have the exact colors specified in the directions, so I did a test under the cockpit to see which gray would win out. If you've never gotten into military modeling, especially modern jets, then you'd be amazed at all the different shades of gray there are. Way more than 50. I just got this panel liner and I was super excited to try it out. It worked great for the cockpit, but I ought to have read the directions before using it on the rest of the plane. The nose fitted pretty poorly and I ended up having a fairly large gap that I needed to putty. One nice thing about modern jet canopies is that they're really easy to mask. The Zero, by contrast, is a nightmare compared to this. One thing that I thought was odd is that most of the ordnance needed to be built. It wasn't a problem, I just don't see it often. Maybe I don't build enough jets. So sometimes I like to use the sprue as a convenient little holder for the parts when I paint them. The only thing is you need to get some of the sprue out of the way so you can clean the parts up first. And before painting, I wiped the whole thing down with some alcohol, and then I traced some marker over the exposed parts of the canopy so the white from my primer wouldn't show through and look weird. I also attempted some pre-shading, but my camera cut out. Sorry, but at least you can see the result. I wasn't so sure at first, but of course it becomes far more subtle under the gray. So I decided to use this Mr. Color for the underside. It's listed as light gull gray, but once I started using it, it came out way too green. Like, seriously, I'd use this as IJN gray, it's that green. It also got all weird and powdery. Maybe my garage was too hot or something, but it didn't really work out the way I was hoping. Anyway, I didn't really like it, so I decided to use Tamiya Royal Light Gray for the underside, and I think it looks better. I really liked these JDAMs. I don't know why, but I just think they look cool. There's a nice little line to follow, so I'm just freehanding it here, and I'll fill in the middle with 2 coats of paint later on. The kit comes with decals for the black around the canopy, but I figured it'd be easier to paint it. If I were to do it again, I might actually give the decals a try. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you know that I hate the old Academy decals. Just so you know, these are not the old Academy decals. These are superb, and I am not going to show all of the decal placements. Seriously, there are so many, and some are microscopic. It actually took me about as long to place the decals as it did to build the entire rest of the model. There are some highlights that I do want to point out. First off, I did kind of feel bad because there were a bunch of decals that said, "Do not paint," but I had already painted that part. Oh well. The other thing I noticed is all the names. Seriously, there are 5 different people's names on this plane, not including the name of the aircraft carrier, which is named after a former US president. Seriously, all of the Russian Maskirovka practitioners must be shaking their heads at this. Under the tail, there's the name of the captain of the aircraft carrier. On the doors of the nose to the landing gear, there's the names of 2 aviation machinist mates, who were also given the titles of J-Soy and Soy. No, they aren't fond of Asian sauces. J-Soy apparently stands for Junior Sailor of the Year, and from that, I bet you can guess what soy means. On the other side of the pilot's cockpit, there's 2 captains' names, and then outside the WSO cockpit, there's this guy, Ensign Jack Ernie Bones. First off, most of the Wizzos that I've seen on model airplanes are way higher in rank, so what the heck is an ensign doing in that seat? Especially considering this is a Top Gun bird. I mean, is that normal? So I decided to look these guys up, and they're all pretty cool and distinguished, but this Jack Ernie Bones guy is something else. And this is where the most badass thing about the plane comes out. So, the original Jolly Rogers were in VF-17. I've built a Corsair from their squadron, and I knew a thing or two about them, but I didn't remember reading anything about Ensign Jack Ernie. He was a pilot with the squadron when it was carrier-borne and assisting in the invasion of Okinawa. Well, during a dogfight, he developed engine trouble and tried to bug out, but he was jumped by 2 Zeros. He shot one down, but the other one got him. And on his way down, he sent 2 transmissions. One was, "Skipper, I can't get out." And finally, his last words and last requests were, "Remember me with the Jolly Rogers." Well, after the war, VF-17 got disbanded, but when a new squadron was being formed as the Jolly Rogers, Ensign Ernie's family contacted the unit, shared the story, and then gave Ernie's skull and femurs to the squadron, and his remains now attend all of the squadron's functions in the skull and crossbones encased in glass. So who is Jack Ernie Bones? Well, he's the skull and crossbones of the Jolly Rogers. All right, Marine Corps, see if you can one-up that one. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the only one who makes goofy mistakes. I just filled in a little gap with some yellow, and then I began using that panel liner to highlight details. Well, I should have done 2 things. 1, I ought to have laid down a glossy coat, and 2, I ought to have read the instructions so I could have some Tamiya enamel thinner on hand to clean up the excess. As it was, the best I could do was use a dry shop towel, and then I attempted to blend the worst of it with some alcohol. I had to be careful because the alcohol dissolves the paint underneath too, but I think it did an okay job. Anyway, I didn't persist with the panel liner, and I guess it's just dirtier back by the flares. Maybe the plane cleaners were worried about getting burnt? Then, once I was done with that foobar, I sealed it all with a clear coat and called it good. So, what did I learn? Number 1, I definitely need to improve my airbrushing skills. I was making all sorts of mistakes when trying to paint this, and I really think it detracts from the quality. I also need to read the instructions before using a product. I think that panel line accent would have been great, but I ought to have used it properly. oh well. I don't think I screwed it up too bad in the end. Hopefully not. And I do have to say also, I think this model has finally won me over to the F-18. I've been saying this whole time that I don't think the Hornet is particularly cool looking. Well, I take it back. She's a pretty bird. Now, before I show you the final result, I have to say thank you all for watching. If you'd like to see more, please feel free to subscribe. I wish you joy in your lives, of course, and I hope to see you again soon.